Good afternoon. I'm here today on Philly Jazz Blog with Mr. Leon Mitchell, one of the statesmen of jazz in Philadelphia. And we want to start right out, Mr. Mitchell, by asking you to share how you got started in this business.
Righty. Let me see if I can think back that far. It goes back to around 1902. No.
I think around the 40s something, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, well, my family didn't have any musicians in it as far as performers, but
okay.
they listened to music all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So I was raised listening to Count Basie and Duke Ellington
right.
On records and on radio when we could find them. There were some broadcasts that were on, live broadcasts that we listened to, I believe, back in those days.
Okay. Did you
And
play an instrument as a child?
Well, I like music.
Okay.
And I was raised right next door to a lady that was a piano teacher.
Okay.
And when I was 8 years old, she wanted to give us a piano and give me free piano lessons.
Okay.
But I like baseball.
Okay.
Yeah, so, and my parents, you know, allowed me to make decisions on my own because they trained me to make my own decisions.
Good.
So I said, nah, I don't want to play no piano.
Right.
And then I got to be 13 years old, and all of a sudden now I want to be a musician.
Okay.
I lost 5 whole years of study that I could have had under my belt, you know. But I started taking, my parents bought me a alto saxophone as a graduation present from junior high school, from Boston Junior High.
Okay.
And I started taking lessons and really liked it a lot and kept on studying. And when I graduated from Northeast High School in 1951, I turned pro on the Philadelphia jazz scene.
Okay. All right. I noticed you had some experience in the Army in the band too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, that was later on, of course.
Okay.
I went in the Army in 1957, and I enlisted to keep from being drafted.
Okay.
And it was also so that I could choose what I wanted to do in the Army.
Gotcha.
And I wanted to be a musician in the Army. So the Army, a lot of people complain about their Army experience, that time was taken out of their lives. And I think that mine was very beneficial to me because what happened in the Army, by that time I got very much interested in writing arrangements and composition and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem being out in the street was you could write the stuff, but you couldn't find anybody to play it,
gotcha.
for the most part.
Okay.
But in the Army, here we go. I got a whole Army band full of people that I can write my stuff and I can hear it immediately and you know, evaluate it, make changes or whatever.
Wow.
So it was very good for me. You know, also I got to work with one of the premier conductors in the Army at that time, warrant officer named Vittorio Primo.
Okay.
And Vittorio kind of took me under his wing and trained me as a conductor. Okay. And taught me a lot of tricks and stuff that I use even now when I direct the Philadelphia Legends of Jazz Orchestra.
And conducting.
You know, about getting the meat out of the music, you know.
Gotcha.
And that was like in the late 50s. And let's see, in the late 50s,
I know you played some with Max Roach, or you wrote some music for Max Roach.
Yeah, okay. That, right. I'm trying to organize all this 55 years of.
Yeah, been a strong 55 years, though.
Yeah, well, an enjoyable one too.
Good.
Let's see. Now, in 1956 or 57.
Okay.
Art Blakey of course, was coming into town then at the Blue Note.
Okay.
And I had started writing my original compositions, but I was scared to show them to anybody. And there's a little trumpet player around town who was a very fine trumpet player and a good friend by the name of John Splawn.
Splawn?
Yeah, Splawn.
Okay.
S-P-L-A-W-N.
Okay.
And at the time, he was like equal operable to Clifford Brown in this area.
Wow.
So he was very much respected. Him and Clifford were close too.
Okay.
But I was afraid of these giants of jazz.
Okay, to show them your music.
Mm-hmm. But John convinced me. He said that you know, they put on their pants one leg at a time, just like you do.
Sure.
So ain't no big deal.
Right.
So I started to go around and show people stuff.
Were you still playing during that time, or
Yeah,
you mostly
playing.
arranging?
No, I was playing. I was playing a lot of engagements around town, jazz gigs mostly.
Okay.
And I could read, so you know, it worked out good that way. So Art Blakey recorded the first of my compositions that was ever recorded. It was called Late Spring.
Right.
And he did that with the Jazz Messengers in 1950. Must have been 1956.
I believe it's 56 in
56.
Discography.
Oh, according to
according
to my paperwork. Yeah, okay. And so it wasn't released until I was in the Army.
Okay.
In '57, and when it came out, I became an instant celebrity in the band that I was into.
Okay.
So.
What band was that at the time?
The 434th Army Band.
Okay, so when you came out the Army, what made you continue along that path? Was there immediate money and success, or?
No, actually the connections that I had made before I went in the Army had kind of dwindled away, because you're off the scene for 2 years. You have to reestablish all your connections.
Only as good as your last game, man.
Yeah. Fortunately, two of my connections were very good friends. One was Benny Golston, and the other one G.T. Grice.
Gotcha.
So they were able to work me into the New York scene, and I started traveling back and forth to New York and doing subcontract arranging work and copying work and all kind of stuff.
Yeah, I saw you had a lot of work up in New York. I wondered if you lived there for a while or something. Or
yeah, I lived there for a very short period of time though, because I never liked New York. It was a cold town.
Okay.
And I'm from Philly, where there's a whole lot of people from down south, and it's warm. Man.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. All right. Now there's a shout out for Philadelphia, and it's still that warm now.
Yeah, it was chilly up there, man.
Okay.
But anyhow,
you know, your resume has all of the alleged greats and giants that you've played with or been associated with.
Oh, yeah.
And honestly, you're probably considered one of those now yourself, although I know as humble as you are, you don't want to hear that.
No, I'm an old man. I don't know how great I am.
Well, you've helped a lot of people. Who would you say are some of the people you mentored that are doing something now?
Well, it's kind of strange, because most of the people that I mentored that I could count that people would recognize the names are mostly off past now.
Okay.
You know, they're younger guys. They were the people who were the ones who did produce most of the music for the Philly sound crew that happened, you know, back during the 60s and 70s.
Right, yeah, because you had a long stint with, quote, R&B type performers in addition to all your rich jazz.
I met all the R&B performers during my stint at the Uptown Theater here in town.
Okay.
I was the house band leader at the Uptown Theater for most of the last 10 years that it was open.
Wow.
Now, that's not to say that I was the band leader. There's some contention now about who was what, when. But from...
history's always foggy.
Yeah, I went in there, I think I started in there in 1964.
Okay.
That was also the year that Jocko Henderson opened up the State Theater.
Wow.
And I became the house band leader at the State Theater. Instead of taking the Uptown Theater, which I should have done at the time because it was ongoing. Ongoing, right. But it was
part of the circuit.
Yeah, but the money was funny at the Uptown for the musicians, and I figured by going to the State, I could get the money right because it was just starting out.
Right.
So
Did that happen? Did that in essence happen?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that was cool. Good. Only problem was the State only stayed open for less than a year.
Oh, okay.
I think when the season changed, like the air conditioner didn't work or something, you know, so it was dead. So that's the time I came back into the Uptown as Sam Reed's piano player.
Gotcha.
And I was Sam's piano player, I think, until 1967. Okay. Sam left the Uptown to go to the Nixon Theater with Jimmy Bishop. Jimmy Bishop was opening up the Nixon Theater. Right. And that's when I became the house band leader at the Uptown. Now, there's two kind of things. Like, a house band leader is on contract to the theater and to the musicians union. Right. So that he acts as the musicians union's agent. Right. Every time they have a show in the theater. Now, anybody can come in and lead the band. That's not, you know, if most of the traveling acts, as a matter of fact, had their own band leaders. Right. They had like a guitar player that was out front, or somebody, or a drummer or something that would count the tempos off and virtually lead the band. And so I just played piano on those.
Okay.
My favorite, by the way, was Stevie Wonder.
Right. Okay. Cool.
Stevie was
just
too
incredible
much to
composer.
watch.
Right.
Too much to watch. I like to see him perform, and I like his music too, and still do.
Yeah. Well, he'll be in the history books for a long time with what he's composed already.
Yeah.
But
he's
I noticed
amazing too. A blind cat. I hadn't seen Stevie in perhaps 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
And he was in town somewhere, and I went back in the dressing room, and I said, "Oh, you're big Steve Wonder now. You're not little Stevie Wonder anymore." And he said, "Leon Mitchell from the Uptown." I remember my voice.
Okay.
That was a take.
Yeah.
Now let me get back to my jazz though, because this R&B stuff is.
Well, that's a wonderful part of your rich experience. So
well, it is, but it's not where I live.
Okay. All right. Tell us about home then.
Yeah. Let's see.
You're doing a lot of stuff in big bands now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Why don't you talk about that a little bit?
Okay. Well, let me lead up to that.
Okay.
I got back into, when I came back out of the Army in the early 60s, Stanley Turrentine referred me to Blue Note Records, and I became the A&R man at Blue Note Records. Now, A&R man, that stands for artists and repertoire.
Right.
And I supervised a lot of sessions during the early 60s and 61.
Recording dates and albums and all that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, and Stanley at the time was playing with Max Roach. So he hooked me into Max Roach to do some writing. And right around that time, I think, well, this must have been 59. That must have been earlier than that. It must have been when I first got out of the Army. Anyway, Billie Holiday passed. And Billie Holiday was always one of the loves of my life. I always loved her work. And so I wrote this tune for her called "To Lady." And Max liked the tune. And on the day that Billie Holiday's funeral was going on up in Harlem, we were in the studio recording "To Lady."
I noted that. I think it was July 21st, 59.
21st, that could be.
Right.
That could be. I don't remember, but I know it was right around in that time.
Right.
And
so she never got to hear it.
No.
She never got to hear it?
No, she never got to hear the tune.
Okay. Well, I'm sure she's overseen it and heard it. From the
with that other ear, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, and like by being at Blue Note, later on, I got to supervise sessions, but I also had a chance to have some of my originals done on a lot of the sessions that I supervised.
Right.
So we did Fine Little Lass. You have to say that very slowly.
Fine Little Lass.
So like Joel Dawn says nowadays, people can say almost anything on the radio. They had to say that very slow and pronounced back then, but it didn't come out like that.
Sure.
Also a tune called Ray C, which was stolen by the JFK Quintet. That was
that happens sometimes,
Kennedy's,
doesn't it?
Kennedy's wife Jacqueline. That was her favorite group in
okay.
D.C. area at the time. Right?
Ah, gotcha.
So.
That was a politically correct stealing.
That was politically correct. They stole my tune. That's all.
Oh, okay.
And that was well. There's a story in that too. There's a story in everything.
So I know that you also coach and manage.
I'm trying to help people come in.
A fine vocalist.
Go around, take the elevator.
Yeah, here at the Clef Club, there's always something going on, so don't mind the distraction.
The traffic coming through. Right?
Yeah. I was talking about either your big band experiences, because you specialize in big band, it seems now, and you have the world's first bebop big band with the Philadelphia Focus.
That's right.
Right.
That's right. I think we had the best one in the world, because we got the only one in the world. The Philadelphia Legends of Jazz Orchestra. And by the way, that name doesn't imply that we think that we're legends. What we do is we play a lot of music of the Philadelphia legends, like the Benny Golsons.
Right. Okay. All right. So there was no ego in naming that.
No.
It just happened to capture what you do, which is preserve the music of the legends of Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And what I got as far as the big band, a lot of music that I recorded at Blue Note back in the day, I was able to do big band arrangements, and we're still doing that.
Right.
Now, one of the tunes that's in the book, I was reminded of again, because we haven't played it for a long time. It's a tune called 1, 2, 3, Not Me. And that was the tune that Clifford Brown really liked and was supposed to record on the next recording session with the Max Roach Clifford Brown Quintet.
Right.
And he passed.
The Turnpike took him from us.
He passed and never recorded it. But we're gonna do it with the big band eventually.
Okay.
Matter of fact, I hope to record the band by the end of this year, probably in the fall of this year.
They don't actually have any CD ever produced yet, right?
No, not on the
What?
Philadelphia Legends of Jazz Orchestra.
That's going to be a classic then.
We're working on it, and it's a tough road.
Project.
We're walking it. You know?
Okay. All right. Would you like to name some of the current members of the
current members of the band? We have some fantastic players in the band. Stan Wilson on tenor sax.
Okay.
Marilyn Smith on alto sax. Tony St. Cutis on trumpet. Kenny Taylor on trumpet.
Who's doing the
Jamal Dickerson on trumpet.
Okay.
Will Wright, right out of the Clef Club here, he just joined the band. He's on trumpet too.
Okay.
In the rhythm section, we got Floyd Bracey on bass. We got the legendary Sam Dockery on piano. Yeah, I worked with Sam in New York when I was in New York. And the only real true legend in the band is the one that I don't want to give any accolades because he has enough already, but I'll name him anyway. His name is George Butch Ballard.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, we just played the West Oak Lane Jazz Festival, and Butch missed the gig because he was being honored down in Virginia as a true jazz legend. And they took him down there for 2 weeks. And
takes 2 weeks to get an award now?
Him it did. He said he's about 87 years old, so it takes a long time to give him an award.
And in fact, he mentioned to me recently that he'll be 88 Christmas. His birthday is Christmas.
That's right, Christmas.
And he's 88 and the ranking living jazz player in Philadelphia, unless you know somebody older.
Maybe in the world.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
that's still active and playing.
Oh, yeah.
And he reminded me that he was on, I believe, Satin Doll. The original Satin Doll.
Yeah, with he played with all those bands. I can't keep them straight, but I think he was bass. That was bass.
Right.
Yeah, and he also played with Duke Ellington.
Right.
And had his own bands and stuff back in the day.
Okay, so those are the members of the Philadelphia Orchestra, and I know you have a kind of
Philadelphia Legends of Jazz Orchestra.
Sorry, Philadelphia Legends.
I get enough
Jazz
calls to my
Orchestra.
numbers there. Is this the Philadelphia Orchestra? No.
Have you been able to turn any of that money over?
No.
But I
I
know
wanted
you
to show up on the gig and scare them. They didn't get the Philadelphia Orchestra.
But I know you're also working with and managing a very special vocalist that performs with them.
Oh, yeah.
Would you like to mention anything about that talent?
Oh, most definitely. You're talking about my BW.
Yeah.
That stands for Beautiful White.
Okay.
Philly's class act, Miss Elegant.
Yes.
Yeah, and I'm her manager, of course, and she's also the featured vocalist with the Philadelphia Legends of Jazz Orchestra.
Right, and soon to headline at Chicken Bone Beach and a few other venues.
Yeah.
You want to share?
Marshville Jazz Festival, Chicken Bone Beach. When is that? That's
August?
the 24th of August.
Right, 24th.
Yeah,
August.
she's headlining the show that day in Atlantic City, and I think it's September the 10th up in Marshville, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
Yeah, Marshville Jazz Festival.
Right, so folks, be on the lookout for Elegant and her manager, Mr. Leon Mitchell, and his BW. Not BMW, BW. Right. So, Leon, kind of tell us some more about your career. We can't possibly capture everything in the time we have, but there's some other important elements that include. Name some people that you performed with that might not be with us now. Did you perform with John Coltrane? I mean, some of the Philadelphia legends.
No, I never performed with John Coltrane, but I knew Train from the time I was about 12 or 13 years old.
Okay.
He used to hang out with my cousin.
Okay.
His name was Billy Mitchell, and he was an excellent saxophone player and played violin and everything. And they used to be hangout buddies.
Okay. What about Lee Morgan?
Lee Morgan, I knew Lee very well. As a matter of fact, we wrote some stuff together that never got recorded. But I got some stuff in my book at home. I got one tune that I can think of called Two Lees. Okay. And it was Lee Mitchell and Lee Morgan.
Okay.
And Lee was just excellent, man. Lee was fantastic. He was very much influenced by Clifford Brown.
Gotcha. So
after Clifford passed, like he came along and he kind of jumped right into that position.
Okay.
And he impressed Dizzy Gillespie like Clifford had impressed Dizzy Gillespie.
Yeah. I know you do a lot of work with youth. What made you go that route? I know you have to leave it for somebody after you've been working it for a long time yourself, but I know you do a lot of stuff with young people. What drives you to do that?
Well, I'm a teacher here at the Clef Club of Jazz and Performing Arts, and there are certain shortcomings that jazz players have had, especially modern jazz players.
Right.
And among those shortcomings is the inability to read music.
Okay.
So I have a course that I teach here at the Clef Club that's devoted to teaching the kids how to read music. It's not only kids do it; they
Right.
adults in the class too.
Right. Right. Because that's the backbone of really being a musician. If you
It's not the backbone because I could name some
talented
some
people that don't know how to
musicians
read,
who
right.
don't know how to read music.
Right.
You know? As a matter of fact, one of them, I talked to one of Jackie McLean's students, and Jackie McLean had an honorary degree and all that kind of stuff, right? And I talked to one of his students about 3 years ago, and I said, did Jackie McLean ever learn how to read music? He said no. But you know, like I said, I knew Jackie from the Blue Note days, you know. Yeah, so I mean, you can become very accomplished and very well known and not read music, but that's like it's like driving a car when you only got one arm. You know, it's possible, but it's much easier, and you have much better control if you can do it too. So if you can read music well, sight read music well, and play, that gives you another whole part of the job market that you can participate in. You know?
Sure.
So I try to push that for that reason. That okay, you want to be a whole musician, WHOLE musician, then you should know how to read well too.
Exactly.
You know, so,
what's your feedback on some of the young people coming up today in the music?
Well, nowadays musicians are much better trained. I'll put it that way.
Okay.
Than the old musicians were. But there are some parts of being well trained, I think, that kind of take away from the music that they play. For instance, when we were learning music, we had the 45s and 70 records, right? And unless you had a very expensive turntable, the record would never play in tune. They were always sharp because they played too fast, or flat because they played too slow. So you had to learn how to use your ear to get in tune with the record in order to learn the songs that you want to learn, right? And then as far as improvising, which jazz is really about, everybody kind of came up with their own approach to what to do to improvise. And we shared stuff, but it wasn't like,
push a button technology.
Yeah. But nowadays, you got Jamie Amersall books and Music Minus One. That's where they have a recording, and you read the music, you play with the recording, so you can learn the exact solo that Charlie Parker played on the music if you want or whatever. But what that does to me is make everybody play the same, and everybody sounds the same.
Yeah, no real innovation.
Yeah, so like Stanley Turnstein put it, Stanley Turnstein said most of the modern players don't have a voice. In other words, they don't sound like themselves, they sound like everybody else.
Yeah. That's been an unfortunate part of jazz sometimes. People try to mimic the legends so much that they're not using any new creative juices themselves. There's always a mimicry because nobody is totally original. Exactly. Charlie Parker wasn't totally original. Yeah. Thelonious Monk wasn't totally original. But what they did with their training and stuff took it down another path. Gotcha. Train was like that too. Train was definitely not original because when I first heard Train was on Columbia Avenue, he was walking the bar. And I was standing outside people there. I was a little kid. Okay. But he eventually studied and came out of his studies with a voice. And it's trained. You don't have to be told that Train is playing when you hear a new record. Right. Yeah. He was a intense practicer too, though. He practiced all the time. Oh yeah. Well, Train did what really is the optimum thing if you're going to be a musician. Right. Give up everything. And that's play the instrument. And I hate to use the word play. I'll get back to that in a minute. But perform on the instrument to the point
where it's hard to determine where you stop and the instrument starts. It's
Gotcha.
become your, almost like
Right.
you become one,
Yeah.
one entity.
Unified.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And at that particular point, that's when you really speaking through your own voice.
Gotcha.
You know, now
Right.
you can practice the scales and the
Right.
exercises and all that kind of stuff, and you can get so you can learn them and spit them out. You
Right.
know, but that's not, to me, you're not really creating anything. You know?
Okay.
But Train definitely had a creative voice, and Train also is, I like to think of him as being a person who lives 4 lifetimes in one lifetime.
Okay.
And I knew him from the time I was like 13, so I saw him go through all these transitions, from drug addict to alcoholic to sweetaholic. They used to have pocket full of candy all the time.
Sugar charge.
And then the last thing, and the last couple of times I talked to him, the last time I talked to him, he told me that he had embraced Buddhism.
Okay.
And those records that came out on the end, they were much influenced by his Buddhist studies, like Om,
right,
you know, and those things.
It's very spiritual.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And,
Inspired music.
So that was his 4th life.
Okay.
So when he died, a lot of people were very sad.
Okay.
And I wasn't saddened because I said, well, he went on to his 5th life. You know, to me,
exactly.
he went through all of these and survived.
Right.
And then he
got
passed
promoted
on.
to the big band.
There you go. Yeah. So.
So what others can you share about the Philly scene? For instance, one of the things that's a question in a lot of people's minds is, what's the state of jazz in Philadelphia? And a person with your experience now might have some of the best perspective of time to look back and say where we are today. Is the music fading? Is it not as real as it used to be? What's your take on that?
Well, I think I have to think of it in terms of venues.
Okay.
When I was a kid coming up, there were a lot of places to perform music. Oh, by the way, I said I'm going to deal with play.
Right.
I hate to say that musicians play music, because that's what makes people not take musicians seriously, because all they're doing is playing.
Playing, right,
you know?
Gotcha, okay.
How would you rather phrase it? We're not making the kind of money that the baseball players or the football players are making,
right.
So they have respect built into their wallet.
Right, gotcha.
So we're not getting that, so we don't get any respect, because all we do is just playing. You know?
Right, yeah.
But we're performers.
Gotcha.
You know,
okay.
and it takes years and years and years of study / practice in order to perform on these instruments. So
at the level that's presentable in the public eye.
any level,
right?
Any level, for 2 years. You know,
okay.
If you put 2 years into studying the instrument, that's 2 years that can never be taken away from you.
Right.
You know.
And you're a performer.
And you're a performer.
At various
levels. Not a player.
Right.
You know, you're not a player. You might not be a professional either.
Okay.
Because one of the baddest piano players I ever heard, again, piano performance, but it don't work. It don't work in the language.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
but I just want to make a point of that. Was a guy that has never performed with anybody. All he did was just sit down and play and learn how to play on his own.
Wow.
And he was fantastic. There was a guy from here that was like that too. That was the equal of Thelonious Monk as far as strings.
Okay. All right.
His name was Hassan Ben Ali. And
from Philly?
Yeah, from Philly, from North Philly.
Okay.
Matter of fact, he's Odin Pope's mentor.
Okay.
You know, and so.
Have you played with Odin? Have you played with Odin?
Yeah. Odin played in my band at the Uptown, and played. I used to also do. When you're the house band leader at the Uptown, you also get engagements like at the to put together bands for the, what was it at the time, the big places down in South Philly, like the ballparks where these had.
Oh, okay.
I can't think of the name of them. They changed them so fast now.
Veterans?
Yeah, Veterans.
Or before Veterans?
Before Veterans.
JFK.
Yeah, JFK. Before that, maybe. I don't know.
Oh, before JFK was, I think everything was at Lehigh Avenue, wasn't Connie Mack?
Oh, Connie Mack, what?
Yeah, Connie Mack Stadium.
Nah, they know did music in Connie Mack.
Oh, okay.
I know up there. But I'm talking about the South Philly.
Okay.
All over South Philly.
Concerts, those type of things. Spectrum.
Spectrum, that's
there you
one.
go.
Yeah.
There you
So
go.
I used to put together bands to back the traveling acts, the R&B acts would come through.
Right.
And I did Barry White, put together a 35-piece orchestra to back Barry White, and also the guy that used to have the girl chained to his organ. Isaac Hayes.
Oh, I was gonna say Rick James. No,
no, Rick James, if he did it, he got it from Isaac Hayes. But
Hot Butter Soul.
in those days, I used to, all the musicians that played with me at the Uptown, I used to also use them on
Right,
those
on some of the other
too.
things that you put together.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Mr. Mitchell, you are a jewel in the Philadelphia jazz scene. I believe
When
you're.
it was kind of
Pardon me?
opal.
A diamond. Let's go with the expensive one. Let's go with diamond. You know, there might be some more expensive than diamond. I'm not a jewelry person, but I think you're a jewel in the jazz community, and I want to give you that recognition. Philly Jazz Blog wants to give you that recognition, and it's not us so much, because in having watched you myself in the last few years and seeing how you have had impact on so many different people, I just have to say that. So take it or leave it, but that's my impression. And I'd like to thank you for joining us on Philly Jazz Blog. However, this is not the end. I want to give you a last wrap up of how your interpretation of where we're going.
Okay.
Because we talked about where we were, where you were, how it is now, but where we're going with the music now.
Okay. Well, one of the things that I see happening now that I'm very happy about, when I was coming up with music, see, we couldn't go to college and get degrees in music and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
It just wasn't available to
Right,
us.
sure.
Money financially or pre-civil rights, it wasn't available. So
Right.
the only way we could learn was to share with each other.
Right.
And there came a period that is just, to me, just winding down now, where musicians got very separated in the fact that I'm getting this together over here.
Gotcha.
And I don't want nobody to see what I'm doing and blah, 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 blah. So
That's ending now.
Yeah, I think that's coming to an end now. They're sharing again now, and I think that's going to be a big influence on improving the quality of the music.
General environment for jazz in Philadelphia.
Right.
I mean, things like the West Oak Lane Jazz Festival, I think, have really helped pump up the music. And with so many musicians working there, I think a lot of credit ought to go to Lifeline and the Ogontz Avenue Revitalization Committee for having events like that.
Yeah, but those are the, like I said, now back in the day, there was a little bar on any corner on Columbia Avenue where you could go into your music.
Right.
And it's getting to the point now in Philadelphia, there are a lot of venues, so that thing is coming back. Jazz, right, to me right now is on the upswing.
Excellent.
Excellent. But it goes,
Yeah, just like life.
It's like
the hills
a
and valleys of life and the life of jazz.
Mm-hmm. So right now, it's very good. There's a lot of work around. There's not much work for a big band like Philadelphia Legends of Jazz Orchestra. Too many people to pay.
Right.
But Elegant and her quartet or her trio,
Right.
they're doing good. They're working around a lot of places.
Gotcha.
And making an impact.
Okay.
On the music scene,
Excellent.
And
Excellent.
What we're about with her is to not just have people singing some songs, but do a show.
Right.
Actually
perform.
Put a
Stop
show.
playing and perform.
Yeah, there you go. Give them a performance. Give them some special arrangements.
Sure.
Not just jam sessions.
Right.
Because jam sessions are very difficult to pull off nowadays.
Sure.
A jam session used to be performed by 30 musicians who all knew the same 200 songs.
Right.
Who could agree on the chord changes to the song, who knew how to play solos on all these songs.
Right.
So it worked.
Right.
Nowadays, 15 years ago, I went to what was supposed to be a jam session at a little club out at 53rd and Walnut, I guess it was. I forget the name of it.
Okay.
You upstairs at the thing. Yeah. Anyhow, I was amazed. They didn't know any songs. They played Mr. Magic for about 3 hours.
They didn't know the standards and the classics and stuff like that.
No,
Right.
This ain't no jam session, man.
Right.
What is going on here?
I've heard Tony Williams say, if you practicing, don't come up on the bandstand with me. When he has his jam sessions, but he lets you in on Monday nights,
Right.
he said, anybody can come up, but don't come here to practice.
Yeah, that's right.
Know
what
the
you're
tunes.
doing.
Know what you're doing.
Yeah, that's right.
So, Mr. Mitchell, thank you very much for your time. In the future, we'd like to rejoin this conversation again to go further and continue to add to our documentation of some of the Philadelphia jazz personalities, current jazz personalities. And what's your final parting shot that you'd like to leave the audience of Philly Jazz Blog with about the music or yourself?
Please support this music, because if you don't support this music, it's going to go away. And everybody's been pleading like that, and I think that the people are supporting it now. We just played the West Oak Lane Jazz Festival with the big band,
right?
And people were out there in the rain with their umbrellas up and stuff, and that's
That's
very
a good
satisfying.
sign. That's a good sign.
Very satisfying.
Right.
And we wasn't playing no smooth jazz either.
Right. When you hear that, Philly, no smooth jazz. Support the music and get out there and help keep this thing alive.
That's right.
Thank you, Leon Mitchell.
Thank you very much, Mr. Up.
All right.